Welcome to SI Now Live. I'm Robin Lundberg. He's Ryan Aselta. Happy day before Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Does today have a name? I mean, Friday's Black Friday, Thursday's Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, National Traffic Day?
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not traveling today. How about you, Robin?
I'm glad about that.
Yeah.
Maybe National Mail It In Day for some of you guys at work out there. Anyway, the latest college football playoff rankings are out, and our college football analyst, Pete Mundo, is here to go over some of them and some resumes for teams trying to get in the mix. If you're looking at the top four, it's Alabama, Miami, Clemson, and Oklahoma, with Wisconsin and Auburn next up. Pete, any surprise with Miami jumping Clemson?
Not a shocker, but what was surprising to me was the fact that the committee decided to move Miami up. And one of the reasons that Kirby Hocutt said that was because they trailed Virginia by 14 points early on. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but now losing during the game is somehow an impressive thing for the committee because they came back from that. I don't get it. It feels like a lot of excuses for this Miami team, like they really want the Hurricanes to have a good season. I hope it comes down to the ACC championship and one of these teams is knocked out. There was some discussion last night that maybe if it's a close game and Clemson wins, both these teams get in. I don't see how that's going to happen, but with the lack of respect for Oklahoma here, it wouldn't be surprising to me.
Maybe they're punishing Baker Mayfield.
Well, everybody else is.
Yeah,
everybody else is, so why not?
Let's talk resumes. A couple teams outside of the top five. We begin with Auburn at number 6, getting ready for the Iron Bowl. 9-2 right now, the Tigers are. How big would a win over Alabama be, and how much could they actually jump in that top 5?
Well, I think you look at this Auburn team and you say, all right, the 2 losses, which we've never had a 2-loss champion in before, but with the win over Georgia and then potentially beating Alabama and then a rematch with Georgia, that's a great resume. That is as good a resume as you're going to find, even with 2 losses. So I would absolutely put Auburn in if they win out, if they're the SEC champion. The discussion really is whether or not you would put in a 1-loss Alabama if they lose this week and don't make the SEC title game. We saw this precedent set last year with Ohio State. I don't think the resume is strong enough for Alabama. Last year, Ohio State had that great non-conference win over Oklahoma in Norman. There's nothing like that for Alabama. The Florida State game doesn't look as good as it did early in the season. It was also a neutral site game, so I don't think it's as comparable. Alabama this year with 1 loss, not winning the division, and Ohio State last year. But I do believe Auburn wins out. They should absolutely be in.
Speaking of Ohio State, let's go to their resume. We know they've already clinched the Big Ten East. We know they beat Penn State. On top of that, they're top 10 in both scoring offense and total defense. The problem is they have 2 losses, and they're currently at number 9. Is there a way they could jump all the way into that top 4?
There is, but they need a lot of help. They need Alabama to win out, take care of business there. They need, let's say, Clemson or Miami, doesn't really matter. One of those teams have to blow the other one out in the ACC championship game. Then you have Oklahoma, who has to just slide up to that number 3 spot. And then you can make the argument that Ohio State deserves that number 4 spot. It would be hotly debated with a couple of the other teams in that mix. I don't think Notre Dame has a chance at this point, but there are a couple of other arguments you can make there. Even maybe a Pac-12 champion in USC. They're starting to gain a little bit of steam, but I think that's the scenario for Ohio State where they're in the playoff. Alabama wins out, an ACC blowout in the title game, Oklahoma moves up, and then the 4th spot will be hotly debated.
Well, we'll make sure that we follow it closely, as it will be interesting to see it unfolding and keep those resumes updated.
Yeah, and speaking of resumes, Texas A&M coach Kevin Sumlin getting ready to send his out for some new jobs, it sounds like. The report out of Houston, Pete, is that Sumlin's going to be fired after the season finale against LSU, regardless win or lose. Sumlin came on to a hot team. He had 11 wins in his first season with the Aggies. Since then, 5 years, they've yet to reach double digits in wins. What went wrong ultimately with Sumlin down in College Station?
Ultimately for Kevin Sumlin, his first year was almost his own demise in many ways because Johnny Manziel was 2012. They come into the SEC with Manziel and they shocked the nation. And since then, 9-4, bunch of 8-5 seasons, and the expectations got so out of whack for that first year under Sumlin, he's basically been chasing his own tail since then. So you look at Texas A&M, it's one of those programs where it's not as good as the boosters and the fan base think it is. It's not. They have 1 double-digit winning season dating back to 1998, and that was the first year under Kevin Sumlin. It's just not a great football program. They're second fiddle in their own state to Texas. They leave the Big 12 for the SEC West, and now they're second fiddle, really fourth fiddle, to Alabama, Auburn, and LSU. They're a middle-of-the-pack program. They don't want to come to terms with that. They don't want to admit it. With that being said, I do understand it. 6 years in for Kevin Sumlin. If you think you can do better, it's time to move on.
A football program that's not as good as its boosters and fans think it is. Wow, that list of those programs goes way
Couple of those
deep.
out there,
Yeah.
right?
It's Thanksgiving, a time for remembrance and gratitude. And if you're a sports fan, sometimes life can be pretty good. Philly has a lot to be thankful for. After many torpid seasons, the Eagles are dominant, and the Sixers have one of the best young cores in basketball. The Patriots continue to bless Boston fans, but now the city can be thankful for the Celtics, and to Cleveland for sending Kyrie Irving their way. Across the country, LA is thanking two individuals who turned the Rams around. Sean McVay and Jared Goff are on their way to bringing playoff football back to La La Land. Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor don't need your thanks. They received millions of dollars from their bizarre fight. Hey man, you watched it. Houston is thankful for their first World Series, and the city should send a little extra thank you to Ben Reiter for his epic cover reverse jinx. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all!
Talk about a bunch of turkeys with those bobbling heads right there, Robin.
Or us.
Yeah, or us, the two pilgrims here on your set. Lots to be thankful for in the world of sports. What are you most thankful for, and what should fans be thankful for in sports this time of year?
Let's go with the latter. What fans should maybe be a little bit more thankful for. You saw in the video the Sixers. How about Sam Hinkie? Poor Sam Hinkie, did all that work, took all that heat, and now the fruits of his labor are finally coming out, and Philadelphia is the hot team to the point where they're nicknamed the process. That's the buzzword, and of course that was the word he used a lot. Another one, and I'm going to catch some flack for this one, but LeBron James. I catch heat for being a LeBron lover or whatnot. I'm going to lean into it because you're watching the greatest ever, and you should appreciate it while he's here. What's the phrase? Smell the roses while you still can, or something along those lines.
Something like that.
As the great Jay-Z once put it, I'm supposed to be number one on everybody's list. Let's see what happens when I no longer exist. Remember that LeBron is playing. You're getting to watch him still in his prime. It won't last forever, even if it feels that way. And finally, LeBron included, athletes who have used their platform to do what they think is right. You have differing views on various guys, but Colin Kaepernick tried to stand up for social injustice. J.J. Watt raised money for hurricane relief. Greg Popovich has spoken his mind on a number of issues. So throughout sports history, we've looked back and lauded athletes for doing it. I'm going to do it in the present and be thankful that so many guys are using their platform to try and influence positive change.
A lot to be thankful for. Personally, I'm thankful for Jose Altuve. This guy is 5'6", and he's given hope to all of us under the 6-foot realm. I think you're right about there. Us short guys, I am thankful for what he did this season, also throughout his career, the passion that he plays with, what he overcame. He almost didn't even get a contract to get into the minor leagues with the Astros until his dad pushed him to go to a second tryout. Well, I'm thankful he did that because he's the AL MVP. He was the heart and soul of the World Series champs. Just watching him play, but also watching him in front of the dugout, the joy he takes in playing baseball, I'm thankful we had a chance to see that this year. What I think other sports fans should be thankful for is coming up next week, and that's the return of Tiger Woods. Now, I'm not going to debate you when you said that we're watching LeBron James the greatest ever. Here's my argument.
Thanksgivings haven't been that great for Tiger Woods.
Yeah, no, they haven't. Day after Thanksgiving has been a rough date in his calendar, but Tiger's coming back, and we need to be thankful that we're going to get a chance to watch the greatest ever in his particular sport. How many guys can we say that we're actively watching the greatest ever? I personally think Jordan's the greatest ever, so I don't think LeBron. I'm watching that. Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer of all time. We're going to get a chance to see him back on the golf course next week. Hopefully it's a little longer than what we saw a year ago, but a healthy Tiger, mentally, physically, I am thankful to get to watch him play some golf again and get away from all the off-course stuff.
Some good things to be thankful for. Some NCAA hoops teams are probably thankful for some returning players. Here's SI's The Front Office's list of the top returning players and what they need to do to raise their draft stock. Joined now by Jeremy Wu from the front office, your home for all the NBA draft analysis you can handle. And this week, we're going to go through some of the returning players who are noteworthy but may need to do some things to improve their draft stock just a little bit. Who's up first?
Absolutely. Well, first, Miles Bridges from Michigan State, I think, is a player a lot of people were excited to see coming into the season. He's definitely a college star, but he has some work to do at the next level. First and foremost, he really needs to improve putting the ball on the ground. In transition, he's such a good athlete. He's able to get easy baskets and get out in the run. But in the half court, when you're breaking out on defense, it's a different skill, really. So, Bridges is a guy who I think has definitely top 10 potential. And I think he's a good bet to be productive because he plays hard and he's such a, bouncy athlete.
Who's the next guy on your list here?
Robert Williams III from Texas A&M is another guy who is sort of more of a raw prospect. He had a very good, freshman season. He's got some really, intriguing physical tools, and he's improving as a shooter. He's sort of a guy who you can see sort of as a pick and pop prospect. He's shown potential to face up and hit a shot. I think he surprised people by coming back because, he is sort of, a less polished guy, and he's old for his class. He's going to be, I think, 20 by the time the draft comes around. If he continues to show signs of improvement, and particularly with that jump shot, he's a very good shot blocker. I think that he, will be a top 10 pick.
Who's up next?
Grayson Allen, who's a guy who has been sort of a controversial.
Can he be somewhere other than Duke? He's the most Duke player I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's been sort of a controversial guy over the course of his career, but I think when you sort of cut through that noise, he's such a promising shooter, and he's already started to answer some of those questions about whether or not he can make those shots at a high level. I think he's sort of starting to prove that. But for him, I think people want to see him sort of keep it together on the court. I think he needs to just prove that, he can be more of a, maybe a playmaker in transition. He needs to improve on the defensive end. We've probably nitpicked him as much as we can at this point. He is a senior. It's a rare, in this era of college basketball.
It does put you in the spotlight longer,
right,
especially at Duke.
Exactly. But I think if he can just sort of solidify those strengths, and putting together a complete season. He's a shot to be the ACC Player of the Year. I think he's still on the first-round radar, and teams really like his ability to make shots.
And then we've got one more. Who is it?
Yeah, we have Bruce Brown from Miami, who's a really interesting prospect. He's a little bit old for a sophomore, so I think that, the expectation will be, for a big step forward this year. He needs to show that he can play point guard full-time. He's more of a combo, not really a natural point in the traditional sense. Scouts love his night-to-night competitiveness. He's very fiery, plays really hard. Makes an impact on the defensive end. But it's just, about showing that he has an NBA position, whether it's point guard or shooting guard. He has the size to do both. He can defend both. But it's just, what is he going to do where you see him in that role for your team?
And a lot more NBA teams using multiple ball handlers
Exactly.
now. Jeremy Wu from the front office with the returning players and what they need to do to up their NBA draft stock. And of course, you can follow the front office for all your NBA draft needs.
No comparison. The hottest team in the country is Miami. Amy Campbell here to talk recruiting. And, of course, we'll get to the turnover chain. But, Amy, we know that Miami has been so popular this season and so good. Has that translated to the recruiting trail?
Well, Maggie, they have the number 4 class in the country, so they're definitely doing something right. They're recruiting very well. They have the top class in the ACC. They are well ahead of both Florida and Florida State by far. So certainly translating that on-field success to the recruiting trail. And you got to love that song.
It's so catchy. Let's talk about the 2018 class.
Well, the top guy in this class, according to ranking, is 5-star running back Lorenzo Lingard. He's the number 2 running back overall. He stood out when he was a freshman because he was really athletic and just so ripped for such a young prospect. He's out of Central Florida. He's got that strong lower body that gives him good power, but he's incredibly fluid for his size and has been one of the best recruiters for the Canes in this class, so they have a lot to look forward to from him. And they've got their stud running back in Lingard, but they've also got some playmakers on the outside too, and the headliner there is wide receiver Mark Pope out of Miami Southridge. He's 6'1", 175, so he'll need to put on some weight, but he's got the frame for it. He runs great routes, and he does a really good job of creating separation from DBs, but what jumps off the film to me is his fluidity. He's just a really smooth mover. It looks easy for him out there, and it's always a good thing for the Canes to land a star athlete out of a local high school like Southridge.
There's so much talent in Miami, so who are the Canes now targeting as they move forward?
Well, they certainly have a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail, like we mentioned. They lost a commitment from quarterback Artur Sikowski, who flipped to Rutgers.
What?
But don't worry, Canes fans. I know that sounds strange, but this was not going to be a good fit anyway. He's a New Jersey guy guy that was playing at IMG Academy in Florida, and he really struggled there and ended up spending a good part of the season on the bench. Miami does still need a QB, and soon, because those quarterback dominoes fall pretty quickly in recruiting, and things are looking good with Jaron Williams, who recently decommitted from Kentucky. The 4-star dual-threat QB out of Gwinnett, Georgia, backed off that Kentucky pledge after he officially visited Miami for that Notre Dame game, so that says a lot. He still plans to officially visit Ohio State and Auburn, but things are looking good for the Canes there. And this is Miami, so they are sitting on a hotbed of talent, some of the best in the country, and they're trying to keep Tyson Campbell home. He's a stud 5-star DB out of American Heritage in Plantation, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Miami's campus. A big advantage for the Canes in this is that his former high school coach, Mike Rumpf, is now the DB's coach at the U, but Miami has some competition here with Alabama and Georgia. Those schools are still very much in the picture. So if Campbell doesn't end up wearing that turnover chain in the future, another name to know, Patrick Surtain Jr. He's Campbell's teammate at American Heritage. He's been on campus at Miami very frequently as of late, and for a long time he looked like an LSU lean, but things are looking up for the Hurricanes there, Maggie.
Okay, so we keep talking about all of this high school talent that's in South Florida. When Miami is recruiting well, how dangerous are they for everyone else in college football?
That's a great question. I think a lot of other college coaches and those great recruiters should be very afraid of how well Miami is doing. When I was watching some of their games recently and seeing those guys with the turnover chain on, all of them came from Miami high schools, not even Florida high schools, Miami high schools. And I was thinking, these are some of the best DBs in the country that come out of Miami. And for years when I was covering recruiting, I was watching those guys grow up Canes fans and go to other colleges. And it didn't make sense to me because they were right there. It should be easy for Miami to grab these guys. Now they're keeping those guys home, and it's making a huge difference on the field. Al Golden wasn't a great fit culture-wise when it came to recruiting, that South Florida vibe. They need that swag. They're bringing it back. They've got that turnover chain. Manny Diaz has done an incredible job there with that defense and just bringing that swag back to the U that we love to see, and it starts with recruiting, and it's going really well for them.
We almost got through the whole video without saying the U is back. The U is back.
The U is back. Can't help it.
Amy Campbell, thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Hey, what's up? It's Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive, with your SI Now Fantasy Football Sit Starts for week number 12. The fantasy football playoffs are getting closer, so it's very important that we make the right lineup decisions. Let's start in D.C., where Washington veteran tight end Vernon Davis is having a very good season. Currently, Davis is a top 10 fantasy tight end in standard formats. In the last 3 weeks, Davis has 26 targets with 16 receptions. With Jordan Reed likely out for week 12, Davis should keep the good times rolling versus the New York Giants, who are dead last in the NFL covering tight ends, giving up an average of 18 points to tight ends a game in PPR formats. At wide receiver, T.Y. Hilton. Most fantasy owners will tell you that T.Y. Hilton has been a major disappointment this season. Hilton has put up big numbers on owners' bench and has had poor games in owners' starting lineups. In Week 12, Hilton has two things going for him. First, the Colts are at home, where Hilton has played his best games this season. Twice this year as Lucas Oil, Hilton has put up games with over 150 yards receiving. Secondly, in Week 12, the Colts face the Titans, who are 26 in the NFL in fantasy points versus wide receivers. The Titans secondary gives up an average of 36 fantasy points per game to wide receivers in PPR formats. Play Hilton with confidence in week number 12. Corey Davis. The Corey Davis breakout is coming, and it will start this week. Since returning from injury, Davis hasn't put up big numbers, but he is getting the targets. This week, he gets the Colts beat-up secondary. His schedule for the rest of the season includes the poor secondaries of Houston, Arizona, and San Francisco. The Corey Davis breakout is coming. Some guys you need to leave off of your starting lineups this week. Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate has caught 3 passes in the last 3 weeks. Ryan Fitzpatrick does not look for Brate the way Jameis Winston did. As long as Jameis is out, Brate is not a player that should see your starting lineup. Alex Smith. In his past 3 games, Alex Smith has returned to being, well, Alex Smith. He has not scored over 20 fantasy points. He has 3 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. Alex Smith was a thing to start the season, but right now, he looks like the Alex Smith who has no fantasy value. Amir Abdullah. Since week 6, Amir Abdullah has not had over 50 yards rushing. He has also been in on less than 50% of the snaps, in all but one game in that time frame. This week, Abdullah is matched up versus the Vikings' top-ranked run defense. Leave him on your bench unless you want a 0.
Speaking of starts and sits, some breaking news during the show. Sean McDermott, Bills head coach, has announced that Tyrod Taylor will start this weekend for Buffalo. I don't really know what to say about that. I'm not going to give them credit for undoing what they should have never done in the first place. Yeah. It just makes me question if they have any idea what they're doing overall.
Yeah, I don't think they do. The only smart thing McDermott did was not name Taylor the starter for the remainder of the season. That's the one good thing. The damage has been done here, Robin. Putting Peterman in last week, seeing how that was a disastrous decision with the 5 interceptions, now to go back to Taylor. What does this say about the leadership in McDermott, the veterans on that team who are sitting there thinking, why did we make a change in the first place as a playoff team? I think that's going to have a lasting effect. They still hold the playoff spot amazingly, but the damage has been done. The schedule's not going to be kind. They play at Kansas City, who's hungry for a win. They've still got to play the Patriots twice down the stretch here. So I'm looking at this 7-9 Bills team, and they look back to the week they made the quarterback change originally is when things went downhill.
It was a team that was doing well in the present, and going to Peterman is a move that you're thinking really long-term into the future, because it certainly wasn't for last weekend.
Are you, though? I mean, this is a 5th-round pick. It wasn't a late first-round pick in future of the franchise.
I'm not saying he was ever going to turn out to be that. I'm saying if there was this inkling that he could be the guy going forward, that's the rationale for a move like that, because there is no logic for doing it in the meantime. And then going back to Taylor, there was no logic for taking Taylor out in the first place.
Especially when you were 5-4 holding on to a playoff spot. If they're 2-7 and they want to go to Peterman and get a look at the future, yeah, I love that move. But 5-4, absolutely not.
Who knows? That's our show for today. Happy Thanksgiving and safe travels. Here's a look to what to look forward to this weekend. See you Monday.
It's time for SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Happy Thanksgiving to all the football fans out there. This week we have a special preview of the NFL's slate of holiday games. And first we head south to Dallas, where the Cowboys will host the Chargers. The Cowboys are coming off an embarrassing loss to the Eagles, and despite Dallas managing to score only 16 points in their past 2 games, Cowboys offensive tackle Byron Bell likes their chances of making the playoffs.
A lot of football still left to be played, so we just got to make a run. And I done been in this situation before on previous teams, and I've done seen the turnaround, so trust me, we are not out of it by a long shot.
The Cowboys sit at 5-5 going into this week, but the pesky Chargers are coming in having won 4 of their last 6 games. Next, we head to Landover, Maryland, where New York faces their division rivals, Washington. The Giants are coming off a win over the Chiefs, just their 2nd of the season. Quarterback Eli Manning was happy with the outcome and winning back the fans at MetLife Stadium.
It was great to get a win at home and get the crowd going, get some excitement, and so that's what we need. We need to feel good, get the crowd going, and help us out. So it was a big win.
Believe it or not, this is the first time in franchise history that Washington will host a Thanksgiving game. And for their fans, they're hoping for a win, too. Lastly, we head to Detroit for a divisional matchup between the Lions and Vikings. Minnesota has won 6 straight games and looks to extend their lead in the NFC North. Wide receiver Jarius Wright is excited to have all eyes on his team when they take the field.
It's cool. It's one of the games it's on, one of the few games it's on. So everybody gets a chance to see you play, and I think that means you're a pretty good team if they put you in the Thanksgiving game.
Detroit will need to win this in the air. They are near the bottom of the league in rushing, while Minnesota's rush defense is 2nd best in the NFL.